Hey everybody, I hope you guys are healthy and safe. So this is the Lenovo Tab Extreme. It is a new tablet from Lenovo that, as you can see, has a relatively large screen. This is a 14.5-inch 3K OLED panel with refresh rate up to 120 Hz. Despite the large screen, the tablet is relatively light at 1.4 pounds. That's thanks to its thinness at 5.3 millimeters thick. But then despite the thinness, the tablet houses a 12,300 mAh battery, which is the largest battery in any tablet that I've come across. The tablet is powered by the MediaTek Dimensity 9000, which is a flagship chip about on par with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1. So, not quite the most powerful chip out there, but definitely powerful enough to run any app in this device. And this thing runs Android 13, so you can install any app in it, whether it's like Instagram, Twitter, or Android games. Like I play Wreckfest on this thing, and having such a large screen, it's very fun. It helps that there's 8 speakers in this tablet, fine-tuned by JBL, and they pump out some of the best sounds I've ever heard on a portable device.
Now I know what it feels like to be every cop ever chasing up.
So even though the tablet's a little bit big and wide to just hold easily with one hand, you will likely have to two-hand this tablet most of the time. I find that hasn't been an issue because the software has been pretty well optimized. When you open up Gboard on such a wide screen, for example, the Gboard splits, like it's a really major split, and I can type very comfortably with the keys on the right and left side. Likewise, when you're trying to unlock the phone with a pin pad, the pin pad is conveniently located in the corner of the screen instead of in the middle. But there is a fingerprint sensor right here that's part of the power button, so you can just unlock very easily. The tablet has an aluminum back and chassis with glass on the front. I don't think this is Gorilla Glass because Lenovo did not explain what type of glass this is. You see that on the back, there appears to be a triple camera array here. Well, don't be fooled. This is actually just a single 13 megapixel ultra wide camera. The other sensor is a 5 megapixel depth sensor that doesn't do anything. And then this third circular module is just a flash. Around the front, you also have a 13 megapixel ultra wide camera at the top bezel. So the reason there's an ultra-wide camera on the front is because Lenovo has built a feature that's basically a copy of Apple's Center Stage. What it does is when you open up the video app by default, crops in a little bit, but then the point of cropping in is that if you move around, the crop will follow your head, kind of like keeping you center frame. Photo and video quality from either the front or back cameras are just decent. I wouldn't say they're good, but I guess considering this is a tablet, it's perfectly fine. I mean, you don't want to be walking around taking photos with a tablet anyway. The front camera is perfectly fine for video calls. Speaking of copying Apple, Lenovo also has another multitasking gesture here that's completely copy off of Apple, and that's these 3 dots at the top of the UI. Tapping on the 3 dots will open a floating menu that allows you to then either split screen the app or launch the app into a smaller resizable floating window. So even though this is not original, this UI is completely taken off of iPad OS, it is very convenient to be able to open apps in smaller resizable windows because you have such a large wide screen. You can open up to apparently 10 apps at the same time, but that's overkill. And to be honest, most of the time I open 3 apps and I already feel like that's more than good enough to multitask. The MediaTek Dimensity 9000 has been more than powerful enough even when I have Chrome running with like 10 tabs, Slack open on the split screen, and Spotify open in the background streaming audio. Even though I find this tablet quite usable as a handheld gigantic Android device, I think this is ultimately best used with Lenovo's keyboard case, which Lenovo calls like Extreme Keyboard. So this keyboard case is actually a 2-piece case. The first is this bigger part, which has a keyboard and a 2-part hinge. This 2-part hinge also is just like Apple's Magic Keyboard, except it is a lot more affordable and not as heavy. So you stick the tablet onto the keyboard case via the magnetic pogo pins on the back. Once it's attached, you see that the tablet now it's propped up the tabletop a little bit by about 1.5 inches, which gives you a slightly more ergonomic viewing angle. And on top of that, you have a much wider range of motion now for the tablet. And this allows the tablet to be used easily, whether it's on a tabletop, a kitchen counter, or on your lap. There's also a second piece of the keyboard that goes into the middle of the tablet. This is a kickstand flap that allows you to prop up the tablet without the keyboard, and it can prop up the tablet in either landscape orientation or portrait orientation. So that's or portrait orientation, so that's quite useful. But as I said, even though this is just like Apple's Magic Keyboard, it's actually a little bit lighter because this tablet by itself weighs about 1.3 pounds and a keyboard case weighs about 1.5 pounds. So that means when you combine everything together, you still have a package that's a little bit under 3 pounds, and I find that to be perfectly acceptable. It's still lighter than most laptops out on the market, and you have a 14.5-inch screen. You also have this stylus that I haven't really talked about yet. This is called the Lenovo Precision Pen, but it offers over 4,000 levels of pressure, and it works fine. I don't think it's as good as the Apple Pencil, because for example, I can't shade like I can with the Apple Pencil, but basic sketching and jotting notes will be perfectly fine. Now, the good news is this whole package doesn't cost you any extra money, because on Lenovo.com right now, if you buy this tablet, you get the stylus and this keyboard case included with one set for a total price of 1,000 US dollars. Now, $1,000 may not sound that cheap at first, but you have to consider that if you buy Apple's iPad Pro and then you buy the Apple Pencil and the Magic Keyboard, that's going to run you well over $1,000, because the Magic Keyboard by itself is like $350. Likewise with Samsung's Galaxy Tab S8 Ultra, I believe the tablet and stylus, the S Pen, is one package for like $1,000, and then Samsung's keyboard cover case is like another $300 on top. So that means whether you're buying Apple or Samsung's package, it's gonna be $1,300 or more. Whereas here, Lenovo's giving you the whole thing for 1,000 US dollars. So it's undercutting the competition by $300. Now let's go back to software and overall performance a little bit. Like I said earlier, Lenovo has built a pretty robust multitasking system in here. You can launch some apps in either split screen mode or floating window. However, I find the floating window mode support to be not as good as Samsung's or many other Chinese phones. For example, some apps like Slack, which is a very popular work app for a lot of Americans, Slack will not open in floating window on this Lenovo device. But I know Slack can open on a floating window on the Samsung Galaxy Tab S8 Ultra, Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 4, or even my Honor Magic VS or Xiaomi Mix Fold 2 or any other Chinese phone. So it's just Lenovo software that for some reason will not open Slack in a floating window. On top of that, when you have an app open in a floating window, you can't hide it easily. It's going to be on screen no matter where you put it. If you want to get it away from the screen, you have to just close that floating window completely. That's not the case on my Honor Magic VS, where I can open Slack in a floating window, and if I want, I can swipe that floating window to the side, and then it just stays as a little icon on the edge, and I can bring it back into view whenever I want. And it's not just the Honor Magic VS. Again, with the Galaxy Tab S8 Ultra, Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 4, Oppo Find X6 Pro, any other Chinese phone, you can do that with a floating window, but not on Lenovo. So while it is nice to have floating window support, it is not as capable as just about any other Android skin out there. But that's a minor nitpick, because Slack is a pretty niche app. If you're opening like Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Chrome, Gmail, they all open in floating window perfectly fine. So, this is just a nitpick. It's not like a major deal breaker. Another thing that I wish Lenovo had done a little bit better is the trackpad. The trackpad by itself is great. The mouse arrow is very precise. However, the gestures contradict with Android's gesture navigation system. For example, if I have an app open and I want to exit out of the app, on the trackpad, I have to swipe down with 3 fingers. That contradicts Android's navigation system, which has you swiping up. If you're a UX designer, if you care about UX at all, it's just weird to have 2 different gestures that go the opposite direction but do the same thing. And that's, again, a Lenovo and Samsung problem, because on the iPad Pro, on the OnePlus pad with the OnePlus keyboard, you actually swipe up to go home just like you would on the screen. So that's something I wish Lenovo would fix. But other than this minor little nitpick, I have no problem with the trackpad. I've been getting around just fine. The keyboard's also really good with excellent travel, well-spaced keys, and you have a whole row of F keys that also doubles as a lot of shortcut for Android. For example, you can tap the F10 button to jump into a split screen mode, and the keys are also backlit. So the fact that this keyboard is coming technically free of charge with the tablet, it's a great deal, because if Apple made this keyboard, it's gonna try to sell to you for like $400, $350. Now earlier I mentioned there's a huge battery in here, 12,300 mAh, but unfortunately, because this is such a large screen, And because the screen is not like a LTPO 3.0 panel, the refresh rate can only stay between 60, 90, or 120. I find battery life to be just okay. If I'm actively doing work on this thing, which means I'll have Chrome open with like 10 tabs, Spotify streaming music in the back, and Slack and Twitter open on the side, I find that this thing drains about like 12 to 20% battery in 1 hour. So that means on a normal workday, this thing will only last me about 5 to 5.5 hours on a single charge. But that's for me actively working. If I'm just watching a YouTube video or a Netflix video, then it will last well over 10 hours. As for gaming, it really depends on the game, right? If you're playing something heavy like PUBG or Wreckfest, expect this thing to last maybe just like 4 hours, 4.5 on a single charge. Now, speaking of gaming, like I said, I've been playing Wreckfest on this thing with the graphics set to the highest setting, and performance has been fine. Frame rates has hovered around 60 FPS with only minor drops every now and then, but the drop it's not too jarring. Like, it's not like crazy slowdown. So for the most part, gaming has been fine. The MediaTek Dimensity 9000 is more than good enough for gaming. Ultimately, I'm very happy with the Lenovo Tab Extreme, but I do wonder who this machine is for, because let me put it like this. If you use this tablet just as a handheld tablet, I don't think it's worth the money, because an iPad will give you better apps, and that's not Lenovo's fault. iPad just has better apps than any Android tablet. That's the app developers' problems. So if you are using it just as a handheld tablet, iPad gives you a better experience, and Apple's M chip is definitely more powerful than the MediaTek chip here. And if you're just using this as a desk-bound machine where you're typing words all the time, then you might as well just get a laptop, because a laptop can still do things a little bit faster than with Android's UI. So to me, this machine is only worth it if you are going to use it both as a handheld tablet and as a work machine. You have to do both things to justify the $1,000 price. Otherwise, if you're just typing words, just get a MacBook or get an LG laptop. If you're just using a tablet to play games, get an iPad Pro. I mean, the screen here is a little bit bigger, but the iPad apps are generally better across the board. But there are people out there like me who will use this thing both as a work machine and a gaming device, a multimedia movie watching machine. And if you fit that description, then $1,000 is a pretty good deal, in my opinion. So anyway, that's about it for this review of the... Oh man. So anyway, that's about it for this review of the Lenovo Tab Extreme. I like this tablet a lot, but like I said, niche audience. So that's about it for this video, man. I have a lot more coming, including WWDC. I will be going to WWDC in person, so if Apple announces any type of hardware, you can expect me to get hands-on on it. And I'm going to review Google's Pixel tablet very soon, and I'm hoping to get my hands on the Pixel Fold. So please stay tuned and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. It really helps me a lot. Thanks for watching.